Hello there. Today I am doing a redraw of an old drawing that I had lying around. I made it a couple years ago. I don't exactly remember. Maybe it was like 2017, 2018. And it's this watercolor drawing with ink of this little room that I made. And I have it here on my iPad. I remember being really proud when I made it. It was probably maybe like the second one that I had made. And the colors are kind of neutral, but it's supposed to be kind of like a tree house with a lot of plants and colors and like a telescope and everything. But I'm going to leave that there and use it as like a reference for the new one. I wasn't too sure how I wanted to do this. I thought I could probably just do it with like watercolor and maybe try and use gouache, because I think I used gouache in the original, but I don't remember. And I lost a little bit of the footage of me painting it, so I just did the inking. But what I did was I colored part of it with my watercolors, and then I went in and inked it over. I was debating whether I would line it with colored pencils or not, but I didn't feel like pulling out my colored pencils, so I just used my Micron pens. This is basically it's a tree house. I wouldn't say that the house is like up in a tree. It's more like there's a couple trees growing inside of the house. And this specific drawing, I had decided it was part of a house that one of my characters lives in. She lives in this like house in a mountain. I thought that maybe like she built it, but I feel like that would be a lot for one person to build, so she probably found it and like adjusted it, like house makeover type stuff. But I know there's going to be like a lot of plants and hanging terrariums and all kinds of things like that, books, plants, telescope. I have a couple other drawings that I made for her house, and what ended up happening was I would like draw one room and then another room, and then eventually I just had a bunch of rooms, so I decided to like combine them to be one house. So this is the character that I designed for her. Her name is Koa, and she kind of like gardens a lot. I remember I did this for, I think, 2022 Art Fight, and then I also made this painting of her entering one of the sections of her house because I decided that I wanted her to have a like aquarium inside of the house. So it's kind of just like a mash of a bunch of things that I like. So there's probably a library in there too. And then afterwards, I made like a makeshift, it's like a kitchen, but I imagine there's like multiple kitchens. And this is the one that she doesn't really use. And then I was like thinking, where can I connect the outdoors to it? So there's supposed to be like a greenhouse outside. And then after all of this, I was like, okay, well, where do all of these go in the floor plan of the house? And I really like doing like the floor plan, so I did this one here. It's I colored it here, and it's like the different rooms. This in the top left corner is the room that I'm drawing right now with the tree sticking out in between, and I don't really know how it works because the drawing I have here, like the ledge is kind of like weird, and it very much looks like it's above the ground, so I'm not sure, maybe there's like a basement underneath, but it doesn't really matter too much. And then this is the one that I made of the actual basement, and I imagine like all the tanks and stuff are under, like the equipment you used for the aquariums are down there, and then this little like office corner. And so the room that I didn't really color, I guess it would be like a guest room. So for her story, there's like, well, basically she kind of lives on a mountain, I think, and there's supposed to be like these little kids that like show up at her house. They all got lost there, so she obviously has to have a space for them to stay, while she's probably looking for them to get out of her hair, because they kind of raid her house almost, like not actually raid, she just didn't really want them there. But I'm still working on that story. It's more vibes and no plot, which happens a lot with the stories that I make. So at this point, I don't really like inking, to be honest. I think a lot of people find it relaxing, but I don't. I genuinely just don't like it that much, especially with digital art. I really don't like it. It's so time consuming and it makes my hand hurt. But I think I was doing okay because my lines were not like too wiggly. There was a couple areas that were kind of wiggly, but like the floor, I was kind of surprised that I was able to get it to work. But I don't think that the ink, it was kind of annoying to use on this paper. I think that I didn't like the paper at all. I was trying to use it with the watercolors and everything. But like the grain of the paper was kind of weird with the ink. I'm not sure. I don't think it like is too obvious. But yeah, I'm just doing the tree. I had a reference up for the tree, but I didn't really use it very well. I just kind of did what I usually do with like planks and wood, like the squiggles and everything. Yeah, I was also like adding his plants. I didn't look up references for plants either. I kind of just copied the original drawing and like the really strange plants and everything. So yeah, here I'm switching to watercolors. I wanted to use watercolors because I haven't used them a lot recently. Like, they're my favorite medium, but I just haven't had time to like do any full paintings for myself. I'm doing stuff for school and I had to do like these large drawings. Like right now I'm doing a self-portrait, and also I just finished this like massive color pencil drawing that I didn't want to do. I like color pencils, but like not enough to do a full illustration. It takes like a lot of time to render it, and it was kind of hard, and it took me too long, and they were pressuring me because they were going to use it for, I don't know, they wanted me to get like a frame for it so they could put it up, but I'm not too sure where they're putting it up, so we'll see. I think they haven't put it up yet, but I'll check tomorrow. Anyway, as of now, I was having a little bit of a hard time with the values with the watercolor, and the colors too. The original drawing is very muted, and I'm not really sure why it's like that. I think that I just didn't know how to make my watercolors bright, which is kind of weird because these colors are very bright, so I must have been using a different watercolor set. Because if I was using these ones, I think my colors would have turned out a little bit brighter. But I knew that I wanted to follow this like color scheme that I have for her house, which is kind of like it's like a dark green, bright orange, but in this painting I didn't really use that bright orange. I used this red color. And I also didn't really get the dark green. I kind of got a light green and then a dark blue. I was looking at some references of some other isometric rooms, and I saw one that had this like the shadows and the light from the window, and I was like, I'm gonna add that because that's gonna make it seem more in depth, I guess. So I darkened the wood floor and tried to get that box as well. A lot of it, I don't know if it's readable or not, but basically, in order to enter this little room of hers, you have to like walk through that hole in the wall with the pillow and the blanket and the curtain. And there's like no other way into that room. And I guess it's just like our own personal nook, but it's not a bedroom. I think the bedroom is on the next floor. I haven't designed that floor yet, but maybe you'd get to the third floor, I mean, with that ladder. But I feel like that's just such a like exclusive way to get up to the second floor. So maybe there is another stairwell, but I'm not sure yet. And I wouldn't mind if it is just a ladder, because that way it makes her own space up there just a little bit harder to get to, especially since this is kind of like a tree house. So there's a lot of like secret areas where you can't really quite get to. I really want to work on this story a little more. now that I think about it. There's like a couple locations that I've made. I haven't drawn them yet, but they're in my brain. Like I've done character sheets for 3 other characters. Yeah, the main character and then 2 other side characters, and I was working on another one for one of the other characters, but I haven't done it yet. And I've designed one of the locations is like a forest. I imagine it's like a musical forest where the animals and the plants and everything kind of like make music together. And that's a really fun idea. So I wanted to figure out like who lives there. And I decided that it was going to be like only one person, because the forest is kind of like so big that people don't really go in there because they're going to get lost. This forest that the character Koa lives in is not the same one. And it's on a mountain, but it's kind of like in between the city that one of the other characters lives in and probably some other towns, but you pass through it. Nobody really bothers her though. She kind of lives in a more secluded area in the forest, so people don't really run into her. And I had decided at some point that I wanted her to kind of be like an outcast, but not that she chose. Maybe her family is an outcast, so she's in hiding, but nobody really knows her, so it's just kind of a safety measure, so that just in case, because I think if people were to run into her, they wouldn't know that she's part of that family. But she's kind of made her life out here a little bit secluded, so when those kids show up, it's kind of like a little bit jarring, and she tries to make them leave, but I don't know what's keeping them there or what happened to end up there. Maybe a storm or something. The plot of that story is kind of a little bit strange. So at this point, I was kind of getting annoyed with the painting. I don't know why. I'm looking at it now and it looks okay, but I really didn't like it. I thought the values were off and I couldn't figure out how to make the colors darker, so I pulled out my iPad and I decided I was gonna fix it up digitally, which I was kind of nervous about because I usually don't do that. I'm not very good at mixing digital and traditional art. I think it like turns out kind of weird, but so I just decided to try anyway. Yeah, I use Procreate for like my digital drawings. I've also used Krita, which I like a lot, but I don't have a tablet to connect to my computer right now, so I just do everything on my iPad. So I just decided to put like a couple multiply layers and fix the values and like a overlay layer for the light as well. And so this is the finished image. I think that it turned out pretty nice afterwards. I was kind of nervous it wasn't going to turn out right. I definitely still like the old one, but not because it's so much better. It's just because I'm like nostalgic, and I think that the lines on the old one are a little bit more charming because they're so imperfect. But that's that. Thank you for watching.